On today's show, the Hawks begin their post-NBA Cup run with an overtime loss in San Antonio. We'll get into how the offense let the Hawks down in this game and much more. All that is on the way.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1871 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Rowland, coming to you on a Thursday evening into Friday. And today's podcast is brought to you by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. We have a big return right now at FanDuel. If you're a new customer, place a $5 bet. You can start with $150 in bonus bets at FanDuel. If you win your first $5 bet, place to go is FanDuel.com to get started. I also want to encourage you at the top of the show, as I always do, to make sure first listen each and every day here at Locked On Hawks. Check us out and subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcasts on the audio side, and we're also on video, so please like this video as you are watching it on YouTube and tell your friends about the podcast. I did a two-part episode earlier this week with Tower Jones. That was fun to talk, as always, with him. And then I had a big kind of news catch-up show, unfortunately for the Hawks, honestly, most of it was bad news, on Wednesday evening into Thursday. But today's show, we'll be diving into what became a 133-126 overtime loss for the Hawks in San Antonio. A close-fought game, a entertaining game in some ways. It was a uneven game in a lot of different ways as well. Their first game since the Cup loss on Saturday in Vegas. By the way, no team had more than an 8-point lead the entire second half, or more than a 6-point lead the entire fourth quarter of this one. So it was very much in the balance for the entirety of the stretch run as I'm going to overtime, and the Hawks just did not execute perfectly at the end of the game. For reference, this was the first game without Okongwu for the Hawks for a while. He's going to be out for at least a week plus with a knee issue of some kind. Also, Cody Buffkin, of course, out for the season now for Atlanta. And then per my friend Matthew Tynan, who's been actually a guest on the podcast before, he covers the Spurs, and he reported this before the game. This is the first time all year that San Antonio was at full strength for their roster. So that's actually pretty notable to me as well. Still, though, what I would say at the top of the podcast is that this is not a terrible loss for the Hawks, broadly speaking. They were underdogs in the game. They're about a 1.5 underdog at FanDuel. Certainly a winnable game. So I'm not saying anything other than that. The Hawks were certainly in a position to win this one a couple of different times at the end of regulation. But I saw some frustration after the game. Like, yes, this is a game that the Hawks could have won, maybe arguably should have won in some respects, but it wasn't like it was a terrible loss. They played reasonable basketball, I would say, almost both ends of the floor at times in this one. What I will say, though, is that the offense was just not good enough for the Hawks. It's been kind of a theme, actually, in a lot of recent performances from the Hawks, but offensively, they had a 110 offensive rating in this game, which is not absolutely horrendous, but certainly well below average on the whole. But after halftime, it was pretty grim. In the first half, they were very effective offensively on the whole, especially when they were not turning the ball over, which we'll come back to later on. But after halftime, they scored 60 points on 61 possessions. So they had a sub 100 offensive rating in the second half and overtime. That's just not going to get it done in any situation, honestly. They did shoot it pretty well from three-point range in this one. They had 59% true shooting in the game, despite not being very good from two-point range. They were actually only 8 of 23 from floater range, which is pretty dire, actually. But they were 42% from three, I should say, in this one, and then made their free throws until the very end of the game anyway. But the glaring issue offensively beyond some unevenness late was the ball security. They had 23 turnovers in the game that led directly to 35 points for the Spurs, and that was probably the most specific stat that kind of tells the story of the game in some respects. The Hawks were not great offensively on the whole, but that was the one area where they were like truly terrible, was taking care of the ball. And ironically, when the Hawks didn't give the ball away all the time was the second quarter, where they were actually awesome. And that was not a surprise. When they actually got shots to the rim, they made a bunch of them in this game, but the downside of that was that when they were turning the ball over, it was definitely not affecting them in a positive direction. So that was that. The Hawks won the glass in this game, but still lost the possession battle overall because the ball security was so rough. And that was, of course, notable in a super close game that the Hawks were not able to win on the margins because of that ball security issue. There were some bright spots offensively in the game. 32 assists, including 16 for Trae. 4 guys had 20 points or more for the Hawks. Hunter was great again as a play finisher for Atlanta in this game. But they just were not good enough offensively on the whole, and then especially at the end of the game. So, it happens. They hadn't played basketball in 4 or 5 days, so I get it. But at the same time, that is certainly where I would start. And as far as the analysis of the game breakdown of what happened here, the Hawks just couldn't score for large portions of this game. Defensively, it wasn't perfect by any means, I have to say. about a 113.7 defensive rating. That's like league average or so, but notably, league average for efficiency for the Spurs on a night where they had their third best shooting night of the season, 19 of 42 from three. And if you watch this game closely, and I have now watched these attempts again backwards, the Hawks were not giving up a ton of open threes. A lot of contested shots were going in for the Spurs in this game. That includes a season-high 7 threes from Wembanyama, who was awesome in this game. So that's just that he's a really good player. But he came in shooting 33% from three in the season, and he was really good in this game from three. Notable there. Also, combined 8 of 10 from three from Devin Vassell, Chris Paul. So like that, those three guys right there made 15 threes between the three of them, and that was basically a lot of the swing in the game. The Hawks were good on the glass defensively. They also did force 17 turnovers in this game that led directly to 28 points. Like, if you look at just like the normal stuff that you can control defensively for the Hawks, they did a pretty good job in this game. The Spurs are not a great offensive team by any means, but the Hawks did a good job containing them and their actions. They were making life hard on them for the most part, but the Spurs, credit to them, made their threes. And then the big thing was the Hawks, even on a night when they forced a bunch of turnovers, committed more of them. And that was a bad swing. So we'll get into kind of the details of what happened at the end of the game in a second, because the Hawks were really playing well for a large portion of the fourth quarter. And at the very end of the game, not so much. In the overtime period, the offense went kaput. But overall, the Hawks must play better than this. They got some helpful stuff in this game from Larry Nance and DeAndre Hunter, for sure. Trae had a good game for the most part in this one. Jalen was Jalen. But the supporting pieces were not exactly great. It was probably the worst game of the season so far for Dyson Daniels. We'll talk about in a second. But anyway, one of those nights, nothing to be terribly upset about, I don't think, even though I know there's frustration out there. Anytime you have a close-fought loss that felt winnable, I do get the frustration level of some of that. At the same time, there wasn't like, this is not a sky's falling moment for me anyway. The Hawks now come home after this for 4 games in a row in their own building at State Farm Arena. So a chance to kind of get right after this. But still, at the end of the day, a game that the Hawks could have won, and they didn't win it. So we'll leave it there for now. In a moment, we'll be diving in to how this game unfolded as far as the play finishing, the game flow in this one, my observations along the way, stuff I did not like from the Hawks down the stretch of this game, for instance. We'll get into all of that and more in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks, the best way to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, they have made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. At PrizePicks, you just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a chance to win up to 100 times the cash. Run your game all season long at PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Make your holidays bigger and brighter with PrizePicks as well, which is the best place to get real money action when you watch your favorite sports. And went up to tons of money, honestly, at PrizePicks. They have more than 10 million members now. It's the best way of getting in the action on more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. And they put your members first at PrizePicks, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you get the money in as quick as 15 minutes. That's not very long. Join now, because this holiday season, PrizePicks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. Download the PrizePicks app right now today. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly once you play your first $5 lineup at PrizePicks. That is code LOCKEDONNBA in the PrizePicks app, $50 instantly if you play your first $5 lineup at PrizePicks. PrizePicks, run your game. Today's show is brought to you by Rocket RX. If you're ready to boost your confidence and take control of the bedroom, Rocket RX has a solution. Imagine feeling more prepared and performing at your best. Rocket RX makes it simple and stress-free. Rocket RX offers FDA-approved treatments for erectile dysfunction at a lower cost than branded alternatives. No more uncomfortable doctor visits or pharmacy trips. Everything's delivered straight to your door in discreet, plain packaging. With Rocket RX, you can trust care from a real U.S. clinical team, complete a quick 100% online consultation, and you can actually get your free prescription today. Visit rocketrx.com to get started now. It takes only 2 minutes. Right now, our listeners can get 40% off your first order when you use the code LOCKEDONNBA at RocketRx. That's rocketrx.com. Use the promo code, it's LOCKEDONNBA, 40% off your first order with RocketRx. Terms and conditions apply. RocketRx, better sex made simple. All right, and a lot to get to at the end of this game, so I'll be a little bit more judicious for the first 3 quarters of how I go through the numbers and stuff like that. There was a mid-quarter run in the first quarter to give the Spurs control. They made 3 straight threes. Some tough looks there, as that was kind of a theme the entire game. Couple of fouls from Dyson Daniels pretty quickly in this game. He had 2 fouls early. They brought in Krejci alongside Trae at times in this one. Rotationally, it was to be expected. It was Larry Nance as the backup 5. That was my assumption the entire way. He actually played more than Capella did. They went with Larry basically the entire fourth quarter in overtime because they were trying to play offense first, and that was he was playing well, obviously on offense in this one as well. But it was Hunter, Bogey, etc., and Veet as the backup point guard / backup 2 guard behind Trae and Dyson. They didn't get blown away or anything. They were down by 7 points at the end of the first quarter. The biggest issue, as I said before, was turnovers. They had 8 in the first quarter. It's kind of hard to survive with 8 turnovers in a quarter in the NBA. They did get to the line a bunch in the first quarter, but the Spurs were hitting threes and winning the math battle against the Hawks early on. There was an 11-0 run by the Hawks early in the second quarter to take the lead. A couple threes by Nance, one by Hunter, dunked by Jalen. And then the Spurs, though, came out of that and had a 12-0 run right away. So for the most part, this game was very close. But this is the kind of the one swingiest part of was the big run by the Hawks, the one by the Spurs right back. The Hawks went empty on 6 straight trips offensively. They missed 5 threes in a row, had a turnover, and then Wemby had 4 threes in like a quarter and a half. That was tough. They did a good job, though, bouncing back from that and not losing the plot after that big run by the Spurs. In fact, they were down. They had a big run in the second quarter, I should say. We're actually up as many as 11 points for the Hawks. There was a scary moment, I would say, with about 4 minutes to go in the first half. Trae tweaked his ankle. Landing on Steph Castle's foot on a 3-point shot. He was not very happy about that. That's the same foot / ankle. It's the right side as the Achilles issue that he's been having all year long. It was upgraded to a flagrant 1 on Castle for being in the landing area. It actually ended up being a 6-point play for the Hawks. It was because he made the 3 plus free throw, and then they got the ball after the flagrant foul, and then Trae found Capella for a lob dunk. He stayed in the game, but later on, Trae ended up leaving the game. Again, I think go to the locker room, checking on the ankle later on. That was a little bit questionable. We'll see if he plays on Saturday. Trae was banged up for sure in this one. And just leaving that there, but at least something to circle. They had a very bad end to the second quarter. Gave up 5 points in the last 6 seconds of the first half. But we're up by 6 at halftime. Trae had 9 assists at halftime. They had 17 assists as a team. Nance hit 4 threes. That was a career high for him and a half with 4 in the first half. The turnovers were problematic, but certainly less so in the second quarter, which is their best quarter of the night by far. And they were not necessarily in control, but with a lead at halftime. In the third quarter, I'll just say this. It was pretty rough. In the interest of time, I'll be short on this. They had 7 turnovers in the quarter. After losing the first quarter, dominating the second quarter in a good way, third quarter was back to the same lack of ball security and poor results as a result of that. They were slowing down by 3, though, going into the fourth quarter. And then Hunter had a personal 7-0 run, dove in the fourth quarter to give the Hawks the lead. The Spurs didn't score for 4 minutes almost. They were up 2 with 7 minutes to go. And then Trae went to the locker room after he was limping around with 7 minutes to go. Then, of course, the Hawks lose the next 2.5 minutes by 6 points. So I will stop here and just say this. I could argue, I don't know if I am, but I certainly could argue that the Hawks lost the game right here. 2.5 minutes without Trae in the fourth quarter at a time when he would always be on the court. So it was obviously he was only off the court because he got hurt at that moment in time. And they just couldn't hold up. So people were mad at Veet. Certainly Veet is not a point guard. I've been saying this for a long time. It's not a great solution for the Hawks in this game. At the same time, that stretch without Trae in a crunch time setting hurt the Hawks. -6 in a game that they went to overtime in the game. So, reasonable to say if Trae doesn't have to leave the game, they might have won it in regulation. Tough break. And he came back in, fortunately. In fact, when he came back in, they were down by 4 points. They went to this offensive first lineup of Trae, Bogey, Hunter, Jalen, and Nance. Very offensive heavy. I questioned their ability to get stops, and they really didn't get any stops, honestly, but they did outscore the Spurs down the stretch of the fourth quarter. Trae was pretty much awesome, honestly, for a little bit of a stretch here. He got in the paint, found Nance for a 3. He actually broke the paint again a second after that, and found Nance for a dunk. The Hawks did give up some defensive rebounds on the glass. Not great there, but Trae got past Jeremy Sohan for a 3-point play to take the lead. He had a pull-up 3. He found Jalen for a kick-out 3. So, it was basically 5, 6, 7 possessions in a row where Trae was just carving up the Spurs, honestly, individually. But then Nance got burned by Chris Paul twice in about 3 minutes. The second time was a 4-point play and a bad moment defensively from Larry in this one. And then Trae, who had been, again, pretty much perfect for 5 minutes straight, misses 2 free throws. So the first thing I brought up earlier was the ball security for the whole game. The second thing was the 2.5-minute stretch in the fourth quarter without Trae, where they got killed. The third thing is that Trae missed 2 free throws in the fourth quarter. Now, Trae was awesome for the most part in this game, and the Hawks only missed 3 free throws in the entire game, but 2 of them were right there. Those were big shots, and I'm sure he would raise his hand and say, gotta make those, and he just didn't make them. So there's that. Then after that, they got to stop. Trae tried to go 2 for 1, which is actually a reasonable shot. I thought just missed the pull-up 3. The Hawks had to foul after that. Nance wraps up Wemby. Wemby makes 1 of 2. So the Hawks get the ball back down by 2 with about 16 seconds left in the game. They brought Bogey back in for Dyson on offense. They get Hunter going downhill on the right side of the court. Great design on that play. Hunter full steam down the sideline. And he has a massive poster dunk around Wemby. Number one, already an amazing play by Hunter. But he got fouled, like pretty obviously got fouled. If you saw the replay, it was uncalled. That's tough because if he gets the free throw there and makes it to go by 1, different game. In fact, I thought for a second they were going to give Hunter a technical foul, which would have been a game-changing play. Instead, they gave Hunter and Wemby technical fouls, which was weird. But anyway, that was a minor swing. So awesome play by Hunter to tie the game. Should have been probably good to give them the Hawks the 1-point lead. Wasn't called. There you go. Spurs call timeout. They try to throw it into Wemby, who ends up tipping the ball out of bounds. It was good play by Larry Nance defensively to kind of bother the entry pass. Goes out of bounds. Hawks challenge it. They win the challenge, get the ball. Now they have a chance to win it with 8 seconds left. And once again, the Hawks do this thing this year where they throw the ball in the backcourt when they don't have a lot of time. And I don't understand why. I just don't get it. Quinn's been asked about it. He doesn't want to give a straight answer. That's Quinn for you. But this time around, with 8 seconds left, like you don't have time to do that. And it puts Trae in a bad position because then Trae has to go with his first read, which is basically like in an ISO. And in this game, it was an ISO against Wemby, and Wemby's not going to get beat on an ISO. Like he's the best defender in the league, or one of the best 3 in the league, and that's really tough. So Trae has to hurry. He tries to get a shot around Wemby. I think he got a piece of it, and it goes to overtime. So people were mad at Trae. It's like, I don't know what Trae's supposed to do there. You throw the ball in the backcourt. Like, it's not my favorite play design, honestly. And if it was the first time, it wouldn't be a big deal. But the Hawks have been doing this a lot recently. I don't really get why they're thinking that's a good idea offensively, process-wise. So it didn't lose in the game. It's just one of those things where it's like you had a chance to win it. You barely even got a shot up because you didn't have a plan. And it was more glaring because the previous possession was when they got Hunter going downhill was like a good design action instead of an ISO. Like you don't have to run an ISO. You could just run your offense. And the Hawks didn't do that, even though they were short on time at the end. Okay, to overtime we go. First possession of overtime, Wemby hits a tough 3. That was the theme of the night in a lot of ways. It was his sixth of the game. That was season high for him. He actually had 7 in the game. They actually took the lead for a second. The Hawks did on a putback by Nance, but then Wemby hit another 3. They turn the ball over. Spurs going to lay up in transition. They go down by 4, and then Hunter misses a bad turnaround jump shot to kind of could have cut the deficit in half. They got to stop with about 4 seconds to go. Then they turn the ball over offensively, and then there was a pretty questionable timeout granted to the Spurs when they had the ball. The ball had been pretty loose, and Wemby had it for like a fraction of a second, and they gave him a timeout. Here's where I'll stop here and just say this. I thought that was just not a very well officiated game. I don't like to pin stuff on officials, generally speaking, unless I think it's like totally egregious. The Hawks did not get a lot of calls in this one. I mentioned the Hunter non foul that could have won the game in regulation. That was a questionable one in overtime. There were a couple of moments in this game that were not exactly favorable to the road team, but hey, such is life. And then, of course, the dagger comes right after that when the Hawks had a chance to get within 2 again. They didn't do that. And then Chris Paul shoots a heavily contested 3 that happens to go in to end the game, basically. He took 4 shots the entire game, Chris Paul did. 3 of them were 3s in the fourth quarter overtime, and he made all 3. So there was some shooting variance that went the Spurs' way in this game, including that shot by Paul, which again was not even a good shot. It was very contested. It is what it is. It went in. And the Spurs were 3 for 3 from 3 in overtime, and all 3 were tough looks, like contested looks. What are you going to do? So I say all that, like big picture, the Hawks had chances to win this game. In regulation, overtime, they were not in control of it at any point, but certainly they were not out of it at any point either. And then one more time, I'll go back to that one more time, that stretch in the fourth quarter with Trae off the floor. Like, you got to be able to hold up, and they just couldn't hold up in that stretch, and that was pretty big. So they ended up going offense heavy, I would say, with the lineups in the fourth quarter and overtime. It didn't necessarily work. It made the offense better, but defensively, they give a lot back, let's just say. But I got it. I understood that at some point in time. And the Spurs are a team where you can do a little bit more because they don't have this great offensive firepower, which we'll come back to in a second. Because, for instance, as we talk about individual players, Dyson Daniels is the Hawks' best defender, and he was a non-factor in this game because the Spurs don't have anybody for him to stop. Like, Wemby's their offense. You're not going to put Dyson on Wemby. So between that and then Dyson's offensive struggles in this game, he became a total non-factor, and that kind of swings things. You might want to go with more offense. Long story short, though, it wasn't good enough for the Hawks in this game. Offensively, that was the key. I'll say it one more time. They were not good enough on offense by the numbers, by the eye test, any of that stuff down the stretch. And that is why they lost this game in narrow fashion. Okay, more to come on the individual player breakdowns, as I always do on the podcast, in just one moment. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Get on the NBA and NFL action and much more this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, if you're a new customer at FanDuel, bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is really easy to use. It gives you everything that you need to place your bets all in one place. And they have all stuff you're looking for across the sports betting space, from over-unders to point spreads, money lines, player props, and game props. They have future bets, same-game parlays, live betting, and so much more. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is also really safe and secure to use, and they cover the entire range of sports as well. That includes the NBA and the NFL, college football, MLB, WNBA, hockey, golf, tennis. They have soccer, both domestic and international. They have F1, they have NASCAR, boxing, MMA, and so much more. And now is an awesome time to sign up with the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started with $100 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel. That's FanDuel.com. 150 bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so the player breakdowns at the end of the podcast, and we'll go to the bench in this one. It was a 9-man rotation for the Hawks in this game. Again, no Okongwu and no Bufkin for the rest of the year. So they only had 12 guys active. It was the 9 guys who played, plus David Roddy, Garrison Matthews, and then Dominic Barlow was called up in the absence of Okongwu. He did not play in this game. Everyone that played 20 minutes or more. V ended up playing more than he was probably going to play because of the foul trouble to Dyson. But V played 20 minutes, did not score, 0-4 from the floor, 3 assists, 3 steals, 3 rebounds, and a block. I thought defensively, V was quite good in this game, actually. Offensively, a couple nice passes, but did not score, in 0-4 from 3. Unfortunately for V, last year, and you probably remember me saying this over the summer, my question about V was whether the shooting from last year was real or not. And it seems like it probably hasn't been. Now, currently he's 4 for 21 from 3 for the season. That's not great. It is a small sample size. Last year was 41% from 3. Before that, it was not anything like that. So the jury's out still on that, but it was not a great shooting night for Veit on the whole. It's not his fault necessarily, but he's still in a role that's not great for him. That's just where the Hawks are right now. I think at some point they'll probably try Keaton Wallace again, but or they might make a trade, etc. As I talked about a lot on yesterday's show. If you missed that, I did much more time on the Bufkin fallout on yesterday's show. But in the meantime, he was their guy in this game. And by the way, they were +2 with Veit on the court. So it wasn't like they got killed all the time with Veit on the court in this game. But in the fourth quarter, it was not the best when he was asked to be the guy offensively. Bogey, 10 points and 31 minutes for him, 4 assists, 4 rebounds, and a steal. He was 1 of 2 on twos, 2 of 7 from 3. Not his best offensive game. He played less than I probably would have wanted him to in the down the stretch portion of this game. I think defensively, Quinn might have gotten a little bit frustrated with Bogey down the stretch of this game. And then I think he might be limited minutes-wise. Not like limited a ton. He played 31 minutes in this game, but I wonder if they don't want him to play a ton more than that, which might have been part of why he didn't play more in the overtime period. But I thought Bogey was just okay in this one. Larry Nance was good. 21 points, 13 rebounds for Nance. He was 5-6 on threes, which is a crazy number. A career high of 4 threes in the first half for Larry. He was 3 of 7 on twos, had a steal and a block, 4 fouls. I think defensively he had some rough moments along the way, but defensively also he was also competitive against Wemby at times. So like, his pluses and minuses. I think defensively for the season he's been pretty rough, but today he was probably a little bit better than that. Just like kind of a weird matchup for him, but he did a good job on Wemby at times in the fourth quarter in particular. It's nice to have Larry Nance. I mean, I said this yesterday on the show, and I'll say it again now if you missed it. if there was a guy in the rotation that the Hawks could quote unquote afford to be without, it's probably Okongwu because they have Nance. It's not because Okongwu's not good. It's because Nance is a very overqualified third center. So if he becomes your second center, like you're totally fine, honestly. And he ended up playing more than I thought he was going to coming into the game because they went offense heavy in the fourth quarter. But I thought he did his job and more. He was good in this game, and that's a good sign for the future. Without a Okongwu in the lineup, Hunter was excellent again. He's on this hot streak right now offensively. Before we get to tonight's numbers, he has now the franchise record for the Hawks with 15 points or more in 10 straight games off the bench. That was a record that was tied with Jamal Crawford before this. That's a franchise record. Again, 15 points or more in 10 straight games off the bench. He's been outrageous. 27 points in this game he was 5 of 7 from 2, 4 of 8 from 3, and 5-5 at the line. 6 rebounds, an assist, a steal. Like, he was really good. And the big dunk on Wemby, like, it was a great night for Hunter. Like, he's turning heads around the league. He's playing really well right now. He was +8 in the game and was excellent. Elsewhere, Ricochet, 9 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 steals for Ricochet. He was 3 of 9 on 2s, 1 of 4 from 3. He's got to make shots at some point. Like, it goes without saying on some level, but it'd be helpful if he can make some more shots. Defensively, he's doing a good job. Just the ball's got to go in for him. It's not going in right now. I believe for the season now, Ricochet is still shooting. He's definitely now sub 40% from the field for the season. Like, he's going to have to improve there. Everyone knows that, and it's been kind of a weakness. But he played a decent amount, but not a ton in this game. They went more with Hunter and Bogey as they should have down the stretch. Speaking of guys who struggled, Dyson Daniels has been awesome this year. I'll give that caveat right now. He's been awesome this year. Is been a culture changer for the Hawks defensively. That goes without saying. In this game, he was pretty brutal, honestly. Now, I will say this. This is even more exaggerated than it was. He was -34 in the plus-minus in a game that was a -7 for the Hawks overall. That is not only on Dyson by any means, but he was 2 of 4 on 2s, 0 of 2 from 3. Just wasn't taking shots. I didn't think in this game. Got in some foul trouble. And then defensively, his big value is this, like, he's a shutdown guy. He had no one to shut down on the Spurs. So, like, if anything, they probably played him too much down the stretch because you could have gone with other guys. Dyson just didn't have it in this game. It happens offensively. He'll have better nights. He's had way better nights this year, but he was rough in this one, which is understandable. He's kind of due for one of these. It's not a big deal. Just it was a rough one for him. Capella was fine. 10 points, 9 rebounds for Clint. Had a block and an assist. He 5-7 from the field. Like, did his job. They went with Nance more in the fourth quarter because of the offense and the shooting, and that was fine. I thought that Nance did a good job too, but I thought Clint was really good at his first stint of the game. Not the best. After that, I thought he was pretty darn good, honestly. Just that they didn't have to give him a ton of more playing time. Jalen had 22 points, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks in the game. He was 7-13 on 2s, 1 of 1 from 3. Not a great Jalen game, but like a fine Jalen game. Like, he was fine. He didn't do anything that was like massive, but certainly they are good when he plays, generally speaking, and bad when he doesn't play. And that was the case in this game as well. And then Trae, 23 points, 16 assists for Trae Young, 4 of 10 from 2, 3 of 6 from 3. Got to the line 8 times, made 6 of them. But of course, the two that he missed were at a bad time in the fourth quarter. It's interesting because, like, I saw people talking about how, like, poorly he played. Like, that's not true at all. Like, he was actually quite good. And then at the end of the game, it was not the best. But I went through it earlier in the play-by-play segment of the podcast. But he basically dominated the game for like 5 minutes right before the free throws. And then he missed the free throws. And then from that point forward, it was not great. So I don't know what happened there or anything. Hold your breath a little bit on the injury front. He came back in. But he's banged up right now, obviously. Like, the fact that Trae went to the locker room in the fourth quarter means that there was something going on there with the ankle. He got ruled up on by Stephon Castle in that flagrant 1 foul call. So we'll see if he plays on Saturday. I assume he probably will, but we'll see. And the Hawks obviously have to have him on the court offensively. If there's something wrong with Trae, it's like gets to be kind of dire. Like, all the discussion right now about the back point guard spot. If Trae is not there, it becomes really ugly offensively. So hold on tight for that. Hopefully not any issue there beyond this game. That's all I have on this one. It was a frustrating loss in the end for the Hawks. Not one that was like particularly offensive to me, but offensively, offensive and offensive for different in this situation. But I think they just weren't good enough on offense, and that was kind of the story for me in this one. From here, the Hawks come home and play 4 games in a row before they go on the West Coast trip, which is the annual marathon trip, which begins at the end of the year and goes all the way to like the middle of January, basically. But this first game at home is a tough one on Saturday. They play the Grizzlies. Memphis is quite good. That's where I will leave it for now. I don't want to give the entire Memphis breakdown. They won again tonight. They're 19-9. They had 27 threes tonight against the Warriors. The Grizzlies are top 5 in the league in net rating and record, and they're really good. So that's a big test for Atlanta. It is at home, which is certainly helpful. But at the same time, the Hawks will probably be underdogs in that game, even in their own building, because the Grizzlies are quite good this year. After that, the schedule is a little bit easier for Atlanta. Post-Memphis game, they get Minnesota, who's not, that's not nothing either. They haven't been playing quite as well as Memphis has been playing this year. And then it's Chicago after that. And then Miami comes in next Saturday. And then the Hawks go on the road to Toronto, Denver, LA, Utah, and Phoenix in that order. Okay, we'll get into more of what's going on with the Hawks later on when it comes to the game on Saturday. I'll be in the building for that one. Saturday night, Hawks, Grizzlies. I'll have a podcast after that. No show on Friday unless something big happens, because I've already recorded 5 times this week, and I'll have more to come after the game on Saturday. So stay tuned. If there's a big news item, I will jump into service on Friday evening. But in the meantime, please subscribe to the podcast anywhere you find your podcast. We're on Apple and Spotify. We're on Amazon Music. We're on Overcast, etc. We're also on YouTube. Please like this video as you are watching it and subscribe on that platform. And check us out on audio and video to support the podcast in the best possible way. Also follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me there at BT Rowland. Follow my non-podcast work at patreon.com/BT Rowland. I'm also on Blue Sky at BT Rowland if you wanted to check out all of my stuff on that platform. All right. That's all I have. Enjoy your Friday, everybody, as you listen to this podcast. And we'll see you after the game on Saturday.